Hi, everyone, and welcome to another Modern Web podcast. I'm here with Justin Fagnani today, who is part of the Lit team at Google. Welcome, Justin. It's really, really exciting to see you again after so long.
Thanks. Yeah, good to see you again. It has been a really long time.
I know it feels like forever.
Yeah.
So, what's your role on the Lit team? I mean, I feel like sometimes when people think Lit, they think you. Are you Lit?
No, I am definitely not. Although it periods, our team's pretty flexible, so people move around. So at times, I am lit, and at times we have a lot of people on it, depending on what's up. So I definitely like started the initial seed concept, and then I'm like the TL of lit. But right now we also have Kevin and Steve, who I think you've met on our team,
Mhm.
and we probably have about we're doing a big spike for a new release, so we probably have about 6 people working on the core libraries right now.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, before I get into it with you, I just wanted to go ahead and give a shout out to our podcast sponsor for today, which is Pluralsight. So, oh my gosh, JavaScript is actually 25 years old now. Can you believe
Whoa,
it?
whoa, I can't.
Almost into midlife crisis, basically. So, so they're celebrating all month and they're making 25 of their JavaScript courses free. So they're going to be hosting live panels with experts like John Papa, with stickers and things like that. So if you go to javascript.com, you'll see a full schedule of the festivities. But I'm just wondering when and what JavaScript's midlife crisis looks like, and when that will take place.
It's ready to stop binge drinking at college and get a real job.
Right? All of a sudden, JavaScript's going to start making us money. Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Oh,
Get a real job. Yeah.
yeah.
Okay, so let's just talk about what's going on with Lit. I know you guys have been working on a lot of amazing things.
Yeah, so we've been pretty heads down this year, as we navigate working from home in the pandemic and all that, on working on new versions of both Lit HTML and Lit Element. So we're doing a lot of work there. It's all public, but in branches right now. But a lot of this started from working on SSR. That's been one of the longest standing features. And we built SSR to work with the current versions. And then there was a bunch of things we wanted to change as we were doing it. And we started building up this list of all the breaking changes we wanted to make. And so, yeah, earlier this year, we did a spike on some experiments. And we're like, oh, we think we can make this thing faster and smaller. So for the last I don't know, 5 months or so, we've had a bunch of us working on the next versions. Um, so yeah, the themes are basically SSR support, smaller code size, faster performance, and more features. We're trying to get have all your cake and eat it too. Hopefully this will be out very early next year. Um,
Nice.
yeah, and then we're also trying to do at the same time kind of combine, bring our products closer together. We've tended to like to do separate libraries, and sometimes that's confusing to people. So we're trying to make more of a lit kind of umbrella.
That's nice. Okay, so I laugh only because I know like Lit is super small, built for the web, use the platform, all these things, right? And then like I hear you adding all these features. I'm like, are you just gonna become another Angular? Like, is it getting bigger or how are you guys mitigating that?
I mean, size and built for the platform are somewhat separate. Like in my mind, like basically the biggest thing about lit HTML, the templating library, is it's just templating. It's not a component framework, and it's designed to use with custom elements. So you want to put a component in your template, you just put an HTML tag. And so kind of from that comes from the whole, that's the whole built for the platform theme there. When we add more features, we're not really talking about really big high level features. Like we're talking about things like in lit HTML, the ability to put a binding without an attribute just on an element. This is kind of like the spread syntax in React in JSX. We're also introducing this controllers concept for composition with lit element. So it's a little bit like Vue's composition API or maybe React hooks or that kind of use case. It's not a big feature, but it's a way people could make headless bits of code and combine them together. But our whole, vision still is that, it's web components first, and that lit really is an implementation detail of a web component. It just helps you be more productive. Um, so we're still keeping with that.
I love it. Yeah, I mean, a lot of our clients have been, for greenfield projects, saying like, "Oh, we should be using Lit." So we've been having a lot of fun, kind of building for Lit this past year, and I hope that that trend continues.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, we're trying to do that too. Like some of the new features are about making it more fun. Like we've had restrictions in the past. Like, could we loosen that up a little bit because people really want to do it this way, and we don't want to tell everybody to eat their spinach all the time. Like people have fun with Lit. Let's make it even more fun.
Yeah, define fun. That to me is like, eat spinach all the time, or like, oh, you could branch off a little bit and get creative.
I guess to me, fun would be like how much magic you might have that makes something super simple to like add. Like for instance, one of our new features is an ability for a directive, which is a little expression you can put inside of a template, just to get a few more hooks onto the host element it's attached to. And this lets the directive do like some setup before the next render. And it's a very kind of small little feature in there, but the thing it allows is like these really concise animation directives. So you could just put a single directive on an element that says like flip, and when it goes to render, it'll measure, do the whole flip thing, and it's like you just put one directive and it all just works. There's a little bit of magic under the covers, but the experience of it is way fun if you're just like, hey, I have a UI and I'd love parts of it to animate. I'm just going to drop this annotation on a few places. So I think that's pretty fun.
Cool. Any
Yeah.
other features or things that you haven't mentioned as part of the new release?
Well, the two big ones probably, or let's make it three. So one is in order to get things smaller, one of the things we're doing is moving some of the polyfill support out to like an auxiliary module. And this is more for like IE. So all current browsers basically have a great web component support right now. And currently, like the Element users pay like an additional 1K cost by default for the bridge between Lit Element and the polyfills. So we're going to move that to an external module and say like you have to load that separately to get IE support. And by default, we won't support IE. So it's like we're moving IE support into this middle ground now. We can support it if you want, and hopefully in a couple of years, people will really get rid of it and we'll be able to drop support altogether. Another big one is SSR. So we have a pretty cool node-based SSR system. We've been working really hard to kind of shoot for aim for where the puck is going. So we do things like we can have streaming SSR. We don't do DOM emulation. So we actually take the string chunks of the templates and like stream them out on your HTTP server. So you can get very, very fast time to first byte. We can do asynchronous streaming, all kinds of stuff like that. So SSR is going to come along a little bit after the initial release. And then another big feature that I hope we roll out with, we have basic support in now, but we're trying to do, like I said, something like view composition APIs. So we're calling this right now controllers or reactive controllers. And it's these little objects that you can add to your component that can hook the component lifecycle and do all the kind of things you're used to with hooks or view composition. So hook into state management, context, do your Spring controllers, drag and drop animation, all that kind of stuff. So those are probably our headline features there.
That's exciting. So I love talking to library authors of, all the different technologies and seeing, hooks, and then all of a sudden there's view composition, right? And was that inspired by what's going on in the community?
Definitely. We get a lot of requests, for features that come from other like frameworks, and we have to kind of view those through our lens of like how we work, what we're trying to accomplish. And hooks has been an interesting one because a lot of people, have built hook systems for Lit. Like I'm not sure if you heard of the Haunted library by Matthew Phillips.
The
It's based,
library?
it's called Haunted.
Haunted? Okay. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and Matthew Phillips, who now works on Skypack with Fred
Mm-hmm.
Schott, he made this very soon after Lit and Hooks came out, and it looks just like React Hooks, just with Lit. But from our point of view, like we're dealing with classes and objects. Like web components extend HTML element; they're inherently classes. And so we didn't want to try to create a system where you're like one half in this like functional programming with algebraic effects world and one half in this object oriented world. And we've always had the ability to compose a class out of other objects. So in a lot of ways, what we're putting out as controllers is nothing really special. It's just another object that you attach to your object. But we needed some way to document the patterns that you can already do, that are analogous to what you get out of hooks in view composition. And we needed a couple of, normally you would call these hooks, like a place on the class where you can listen for some life cycle, so that one of these objects can basically go at the different life cycle points, like before render, after render. So it's somewhat inspired by those things, but we're still trying to stick to very plain object-oriented programming, and not really like, layer a new paradigm on top of what JavaScript already gives you.
Yeah. It's very exciting. It's just exciting to see the web moving forward. I mean, I know there's been a lot of like, I feel like a few years ago, right? I mean, this is kind of when, Lit was born as well, right? It was like, okay, let's figure out how to make things on the web work. Okay, let's figure out state management. Okay, let's figure out this and that and whatever. And then now it's just kind of, I feel like it's mostly been like optimization. Everybody's focused on optimization these days.
Yeah, I mean, and things are moving kind of like at a nice clip right now.
Yeah.
I think TC39 has really added some great features, and the browsers have added them really quickly. I
Hmm.
love like optional chaining and nullish coalescing, logical assignment. Some of that makes your code really compact. Modules are really coming along.
Hmm.
We've been using modules from the start with Lit, but we're going to have import maps, which lets you import bare specifiers, and we're going to have CSS modules soon. So it seems like, I don't know, I feel like we're entering a golden era right now. Like everything's really coming together.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then all JavaScript developers will become obsolete because WebAssembly takes over.
I'm not seeing that one. I don't know. I still have only done like minor WebAssembly experiments, but
Yeah,
yeah.
I'm totally teasing.
Yeah. Some people really believe that. Some people are like, we should just stop working on JavaScript. Like, no, you can't do that.
So, web standards. So you keep up with web standards, um,
Hmm.
and I love hearing kind of some of the, like you're talking about, being able to unlock CSS modules soon, and kind of like how that changes, how Lit does things or what makes it available, and same to all the other frameworks, right? I mean, as web standards progress, the JavaScript frameworks and kind of the ecosystem progresses. So, like, how do you keep up with all that? Why do you keep up with all of it? What do you look for?
Yeah, I mean, I'm in a pretty privileged intersection of teams. Working at Google, being paid to work on open source. Having been on the Chrome team and working hand in hand with people on both 2C39 and the what WG W3C world. So the how is a lot easier for me. Like, all this stuff is out in the open, but you kind of have to know, have a mental map of what's going on, and know where to look for this stuff. Um, and part of the how is that the Polymer team historically has been very involved in the web component standards. So we regularly talk with and meet with people in the standards groups from other browsers. So that's been a huge opportunity for us to get involved there. The why is really interesting, I think, though, because I feel like we have a little bit of a unique kind of perspective and orientation on our team, in that I've heard it described before as platform thinking, and that anytime we go to add a new feature, we're reluctant to add a lot of features, right? We don't want to add a feature that feels like it should be in the web platform without thinking about it really hard. And when we do, we want to think about how might the platform add that feature itself, and how we might change when it does. So like CSS you brought up, people have been having all kinds of different ways of loading CSS into web apps for a really long time, right? And a lot of these are just various ways to generate or shim over like link tags put in the document. And in web components, we've had Shadow DOM for a while, which gives us scoping, and previously we had HTML imports where we could pull in CSS. And so when we did CSS and Lit, we were trying to think and advocate for how like the native platform would evolve to add CSS loading. And so we proposed the CSS modules idea, which is just that you could import a CSS file into JavaScript and get a style sheet. And from there, you could just add it to whatever component you wanted. So we designed our CSS to basically work like that. You would describe your CSS in a JavaScript module, import that, and then use it with your component. And we built it so that as soon as CSS modules land, instead of importing a JavaScript module, you can just import CSS. So we're always trying to like, skate to where the puck is going in that sense. And so that's why we get really involved. These standards take years to pan out. I can't remember when I opened the CSS modules issue. It was like 2017 probably. And I think it's just starting to be implemented in Blink in Chromium right now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's totally crazy, like, how I mean, it's good that it doesn't move super fast. So it's crazy that it's moving super fast, but it's also crazy how long things take. So I don't know which side I'm on. But so when I look at, web components, right? So I think it was, God, I don't know if it was like 2000, late 2017, early 2018, or maybe all of 2018. Everybody was like, web components, web components, web components, right? And then I feel like it slowed down a little bit. Like, people are like, yeah, web components, but let's not talk about that anymore. What do you think that's all about?
I mean, I think there's big differences between what you see on Twitter and what people are actually working on. One of the things that we saw happen, I think, starting late 2017, is we had a lot more people take big roles in the web components ecosystem than just Google and the Polymer team in Chrome. We had Ionic come in with Stencil. Salesforce was getting the Lightning components going.
Mhm.
Also, when we started transitioning on Polymer, our focus from the classic Polymer library to Lit, we also, went a little more heads down in that whole era. So it was getting a little too toxic on Twitter. People were often interpreting, like a pro web components stance, or, if you say things like frameworks calls balkanization of projects and skills and whatnot, people would be like, why do you hate frameworks? That's my personal life work. You're awful. So there was a lot of like really bad blood, and it just was best to kind of disengage. And I think a lot of the web components community did that. I think you saw a lot of the people on frameworks, partially disengaged from those conversations. And I think that was ultimately like pretty good. So a lot of work's been happening if there's been like less kind of controversy and discussion on Twitter.
Yeah. Well, I think less controversy is always nice.
Yeah.
It's funny because like the Twitterverse is basically, our own form of politics. Right?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, like, I think when you really evaluate it, and when you really understand decisions that are made, between frameworks and libraries, it really is about collaboration, right? I mean, you look at hooks and, um, the composition API, and you guys are calling it controllers. Is that right? Did I get that?
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, I love to see the collaboration on the web.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, so like, I know before as well you were, much more web performance heavy, right? But like, have you like just changed positions at Google, or like, why are you not focused on that as much anymore?
I mean, we're always focused on enabling web performance, and this is why we try to make our libraries like as small and as fast as possible.
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, the Polymer team at one point had a pretty expansive mission and vision, and we still do in some ways. But like we were putting out things like the purple pattern, which is like preloading assets and lazy loading them and stuff, which is still talked about. And we were making big performance demos on and servers and projects on how to optimize all the asset loading. Um, and we've really had to kind of like focus more on the core libraries because we have some like big customers who really need some things out of us, and we got to get that stuff done. So we've kind of focused more on performance in the small these days. So like I said, the library there, And then like one thing we've worked on is for the past maybe year and a half, we've worked on this pretty awesome benchmarking library that we call Tachometer. Um, we really like want people to be able to measure and optimize the performance of their individual components, like not just the whole page. And we've had a problem where we didn't have great access to like a performance lab with stable hardware like the Chrome team does, but it only runs Chrome perf. And we're like, we want to run Firefox and Safari and all that. So we wrote this tool that you can run on like GitHub Actions, and it does the statistical sampling of performance benchmarks. And it does it across versions at the same time. So it'll do like your current release and master and this PR and give you this matrix of comparisons. And it'll run them for like, hundreds of runs until it can definitively say something is faster or not. So if you get a single machine for just a little bit, you can compare versions and make sure you don't have performance regressions. So that's been working great for us. The Preact team is using that. And we haven't talked about it a lot, but it's called Tachometer. And yeah, people should check it out because it's really easy to set up for your project. And that's been really useful for us.
Yes, I just love all the tools out there that are just making web performance just more accessible generally. I've been having a lot of conversations lately about like, okay, there's like the, web performance wizard that you're like, oh my God, what are you doing? What are you tracing? What are you even talking about? What graphs are you looking at? I have no idea what's happening versus like the, oh, cool. Like I can run a Lighthouse report and I feel good about even understanding any level of performance. But then like, getting from Lighthouse to somewhere in between, web performance wizards is like another conversation, right?
Yeah. I mean, Lighthouse has been a game changer, and Web Vitals. I mean, the ability to stick some of these things in your continuous development workflow
Yeah.
and get simple to understand numbers out of them is just amazing. I do think like a lot of these tools are more focused on pages and apps.
Hmm.
Like a lot of these metrics, like content shift and first paint and all that. It makes sense once you've gotten to the level of app. So we definitely want to like help library and component authors too. Like, okay, you don't know what app your library is going to be used in, but how do you know it's fast?
Hmm.
That's a big question out there for a lot of people.
Man, and Tachometer does that.
Yeah, I mean, you still, I don't want to oversell it. Like the hardest part of benchmarking is actually writing a decent benchmark. So
Uh-huh.
you can have a great tool that measures it, but it's like, what do you actually benchmark? If you have a component, what do you do? Do you just render 10,000 of them and assign a bunch of different props to them?
Right.
Uh, so you still have to do that. And I don't know, maybe one day somebody will take like a GPT-3 and be like, hey, benchmark my component, and we'll just like spit out machine machine learning driven benchmarks or something. But
Yeah. Well, I mean, that's kind of
yeah,
like, the argument between like, let's say Lighthouse and Webhint, right? It's like, okay, well, Lighthouse gives you an opinion, but don't use Lighthouse as the only opinion. Like, actually interpret Lighthouse scores and what it's actually telling you, and measure that against your internal benchmarks. Whereas Webhint's like, we're not even going to give you a score because you should have your own benchmarks internally, right? So
yeah, yeah, it's hard, and knowing what to measure is just super hard. You have to dig into it, and definitely, like I see people out there who are like, yeah, every site I go to, I trace and see what's wrong with it, and they
yeah,
always find stuff.
yeah.
Yeah,
Well, if there's always something wrong, and then it's like, oh, what, like, what device are you measuring on? Are you throttling things? How much are you throttling? Like, I have my idea personally about like what the standard is based on what I've seen, when you're doing benchmarking. But like, I mean, I could be wrong. Everybody has their own opinions. So yeah, but Tachometer, I'm definitely going to check that out. I mean, that just sounds amazing.
yeah. For the individual component developer, I think it's kind of or library developer, it's kind of an underserved area right now.
Yeah, absolutely. So, server-side rendering, like, what's the push there?
So yeah, if you've known us for a long time, you know that our team has, maybe contrarian opinions a bit about server-side rendering. Um, I've described it before as, it's kind of like decompressing data on the server, sending the decompressed version to the client, and then recompressing it on the client. Because your component definition is like a compressed format for your exploded component. But there are definitely some cases where SSR is needed. Things like rendering static pages and supporting non-JavaScript. And we have a lot of customers and potential customers who are like, for whatever reason, we need SSR. It's like non-negotiable. And one of those is actually internal Google. So a lot of our team has been working on getting lit, working with our internal Java servers that do SSR, which is a whole like pretty non-standard setup. So now we have this whole compilation system to compile like lit to Java, which is pretty wild. But yeah, externally we have a lot of people who are like, we need SSR, so we're like, okay, we're going to build SSR. And the thing we're trying to do is, build the absolute optimal version we can at the moment. So we take advantage of the fact that, let's say, lit like describes static and dynamic sections, and we can kind of compile all templates into a version that will just stream out chunks of templates and values, and really try to optimize, throughput and time to first byte and everything like that. And so we have a version of a library we called LitSSR, and it basically you import your app module, and then you get this like stream of content out. If you provide some data, get a stream of content out, and you can just hook that up to your Express or Koa server, and start rendering. And we also have, I think Kevin might have made I don't think he made an 11D plugin yet, but he did make some static generator renderer also.
Nice.
Yeah. So we're gonna, basically have like an alpha version that we try to get some early customers using. And the hardest thing for me with SSR is that without like actual apps to use it on, it's very hard to figure out, exactly what the requirements are. Like, what state management are you using? How are you going to represent, serialized data over? So we need some earlier customers to connect all the primitives that we have and make it all actually happen.
Okay, so like you talk about these customers, and obviously, like there's a lot of random companies consuming lit. But like when you talk about your customers, who are they?
I mean, we have both internal and external customers. So, like you know that YouTube is all built with web components and Polymer. There's a lot of Chrome stuff. Like most of the bundled Chrome OS apps at this point, like the painting app, and I think maybe the camera. A bunch of these, the Help Center, the Tour, a bunch of that stuff is built with lit now. Externally, we have a lot of like well-known companies that are using this kind of stuff. We have ING and Williams Sonoma and Nintendo and IBM and Microsoft and just a bunch of people like that. So we stay in touch with a lot of those customers and try to help them along. We've had some very interesting people come to us that's like, I can't really say what sites they are, but you would know them, who are like, yeah, we want to try this out, except for we need like X, Y, and Z. And so those are always interesting because you're like, oh, I would love it if that site used our stuff. Let's try to build X, Y, and Z.
Yes.
So
yes, the more customers, the more bugs you have in your ear, the more you can build, but also the more dangerous it gets.
yes. With customers comes great responsibility.
Well, that's wonderful. That's really, really interesting. So what are you guys planning for? So you talked about releasing, soonish, and then SSR soon after that. But like, what does that timeline look at? Like, and nobody on this podcast like hold Justin to any of this. But like, if you had to guess, where is that kind of landing?
If I had to guess, I'm trying to think right now whether or not like my manager would be like mad for like putting any kind of concrete date in the ground. I mean, we're speaking of customers, we have some stuff we've told people we'd get to like next year, early next year. So, we kind of wanted to be able to get like a beta or something out this year. We were trying to be aggressive and like, all right, let's just throw everything at it and see what we can get. But that wasn't, coming around exactly like we wanted, and we don't want to rush anything. So it looks like we're going to aim for, as early as possible next year,
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
at
So like
least
Janish ish.
late late Jan, February. I mean, we're trying to redo the whole site too. So there's
Yeah.
like various, like, is the code done? Are the samples done? Is the site
Yeah.
done?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I would be very happy. Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
My birthday is in January. I'd be very happy to give myself a birthday present if actually releases.
Yeah. Well, what about the SSR stuff then? We're talking about like end of Feb, end of March slash maybe later.
Yeah, I mean, SSR, I think, is a little more of a longer term iterative thing. Like we need to put some alpha packages out there and then have people use them and be like, hey, I was trying to use this with Redux and I didn't know how to hook up serializing my Redux state and rehydrating it. And we'll be like, oh, well, you got to do that this way. And we just know that we're going to hit kind of combinations and use cases
Yeah.
that, either we need to do stuff for or at least kind of document.
Yeah.
So, I'm not really sure who our first guinea pigs, I mean customers, are going to be on that. So we'll see. I think we'll have, like I said, alpha, around the same time or shortly after the next lit stuff, and then we'll just kind of go from there and see how
Right.
much people use it. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, it's so much fun. It's good to hear that the web is moving forward. Again, I know some people are
Yeah.
bored, including myself, but I don't think that's like necessarily a web moving forward thing. I think it's also kind of like a we're just stuck at home thing, and there's no conferences going on, and like
Yeah.
everybody's wanting a little bit more energy in their lives.
I know. I miss the conferences and the meetups. I mean, I even just miss the office. Like, I
Yeah,
am really looking
free
forward
lunch,
to.
breakfast, dinner. I miss going to the Google office,
Yeah.
getting those peanut butter cups.
Oh yeah.
I miss
The, the
those.
Yeah, I mean, I miss just having a random chat. Every meeting right now, like we got to give like random like let's talk about your day and weekend and stuff time. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
I think 2021 is going to be good. So
I
looking
think
forward to
so
this.
too. I mean, I hope so. I was thinking 2020 would be really good, but it's been a little crazy.
It's been interesting.
Yes, it's definitely been interesting, and it's always interesting. Like you're so. I feel like you as an individual, like you're like okay, you know, thinking about lit, thinking about building a library right for the web, and then thinking about web standards, and you've had your brain in like web performance related stuff a lot, and like when I talk to people like you, I'm like, geez, you know, how do you get all this out of anybody's brain? Like, there's no quick, fast, easy, I mean, I feel like, developers, they're always like, how do I level up? How do I level up? Right. But it's just like, sometimes it's just time, like aging, not that you're aging, apologies. But aging a fine wine.
Right?
You just have to be in there for a while.
Yeah, you have to ferment. You have
Yes,
to.
exactly.
um, Yeah, I mean, I wish I knew, honestly. Like, I look at the path I've taken and it's been pretty winding. I mean, I actually started being kind of a professional kind of late in this field.
Hmm.
And I've taken weird diversions where I was like, that probably, wasn't the best use of my time for a couple of years. Yeah, I mean, for me, like, I think, like I said, I was in a very privileged position to kind of be on the Chrome team and being, doing JavaScript, working on libraries, but literally sitting across the little cube divider from the V8 team. Um,
It's
so I
helpful.
wish I, yeah, like, hey, how does V8 do this? Like, so I wish I had like a more like replicatable like map I could give somebody to say like, here's how to level up on the stuff I did, because I don't know that a lot of the opportunities I've had apply. Um,
Yeah. Well,
yeah, I
Silicon
don't know, just
Valley.
digging. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was saying Silicon Valley.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, yeah, I wonder how the work from home
Mhm.
change is going to affect that, right? Because a lot of that happened because I'm just like chatty in person. Like I'll just walk up to somebody and be like, "Hey, you know about this, right? Can I ask you about it?" And definitely like way more reluctant to do that on internal chat systems and stuff.
Oh, yeah, for
So
sure.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, same thing for me, right? I think we've done, more modern webs this year just because I'm like, "Well, I miss talking to people. Let's talk
yeah,
to more people," and bringing people together. Like, we just did a GraphQL contributor days, and it was like, "Oh my gosh, finally," because, you think about these things, right? And people getting together at conferences or, let's say there's like a lit conference and, you get all together all the maintainers or, all the people contributing or whatever. And, really amazing things happen out of those types of situations. And this year has kind of lended itself to like not having any of those situations. So contributor days has been just really
yeah. I think a lot of positive stuff has been kind of coming out of all this. Like a lot of the compensation that people have had to do to make up for remote work and no kind of in-person stuff. I think it's helped people in different parts of the world who didn't have access,
yeah.
um, to some of these discussions get involved. I don't know. Once we get back to a new normal, I think some things will be a lot better. So kind of
Yeah.
optimistic about that.
Yeah, there's always a silver lining, and I agree. Like I appreciate a lot of the things, and I think it opens up a lot of doors for people who just like can't be in certain places. But you do miss that, miss that like in person kind of magic that happens. But we got to make
Hmm.
our own. I'm sure
Yeah.
there's a I'm sure there's a GitHub action for this. Like you got to create
Yeah.
one. Okay, well, very cool. So, how do people keep up with what you're doing? What's going on with Lit? Where would you recommend they find things?
So right now we have a blog that we maintain on the Polymer Project website.
Mhm,
We're going to start a new blog, which is going to be the new official place to kind of get all the news. But until then, the at Polymer account on Twitter,
mhm.
and we have a Polymer Project Slack channel you can find off of our website. And so like as we do a new lit release, we're going to try to kind of emphasize the lit side of things more. So we might create some new avenues for people to get their lit news, but we'll announce them on those other vehicles there.
Nice. Well, I hope there's a
Yeah.
lot of Lit puns.
There are 2021 is going to be a great year for lit for sure.
Awesome. And we can find you on Twitter at Justin Fagnani, right? It's very easy.
Yeah. Justin Fignani, beware of my political tweets. So 2020 has not been a good year for tweeting tech stuff. It's been, but
Yeah.
yeah. So if you like my politics, follow me. Otherwise, follow the Polymer account. Yeah.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you everyone for
Yeah.
listening to this episode of Modern Web. And thank you, Pluralsight, for sponsoring. And happy birthday. Happy 25th birthday, Brendan Ike.
Happy
You
birthday,
said
JavaScript.
yes. Happy birthday,
Yeah.
JavaScript. If you like these podcasts, make sure to check out more of them on modern.web.com. See you all soon.
Thanks, Tracy. Bye.